A few years ago, psychologists ran a small, unofficial experiment. It was never designed for headlines. It was never meant to go viral. But what they observed quietly challenged one of the strongest forces controlling human behavior. They took a group of ordinary people and removed just one variable from their daily life. Not stress, not workload, not social media, fear of judgment, not through motivation, not through confidence training, but by changing how the brain interprets being seen. For 30 days, participants were placed into a controlled psychological condition. They were observed by unfamiliar people, recorded on camera, placed in neutral social environments. But there was one rule: no emotional feedback, no praise, no criticism, no reactions, just presence, without evaluation. At first, their nervous systems reacted immediately: increased heart rate, posture adjustment, self-monitoring, mental noise. The same response most humans feel when they believe they are being watched. But after repeated exposure with no social consequence, something unexpected happened. The fear response began to weaken. Not slowly, abruptly. By the second week, participants stopped adjusting their behavior. They spoke without rehearsing. They sat without correcting themselves. They stopped scanning faces. One participant wrote in their journal, "It feels like people are visually present, but psychologically absent." By the end of the month, the researchers noticed something unsettling. The participants were not becoming careless. They were becoming internally anchored. They still understood social rules, but their bodies no longer treated opinions as danger. The nervous system had stopped associating being observed with being unsafe. And when that link broke, fear of judgment collapsed. What this experiment revealed is something most people never realize. Fear of judgment is not a personality trait. It is a learned nervous system reflex, and anything learned can be unlearned. People who don't care about judgment are not fearless. They are regulated. Their identity does not live in other people's reactions. It lives inside their own perception, and that changes everything. The fear of judgment is built deep into the social brain. When the human nervous system senses evaluation, the amygdala activates, cortisol rises, attention narrows, self-monitoring begins. This happens before thought, before logic, before choice. The brain does not register judgment as embarrassment. It registers it as threat, because for most of human history, social rejection meant loss of protection, loss of food, loss of survival. So the brain evolved to treat opinions as danger. This is why even mild disapproval can trigger a full emotional response. The body is not reacting to a comment. It is reacting to imagined exile. But people who do not fear judgment organize their identity differently. Their self-concept is not externally constructed. Most people build identity through reflection. They learn who they are by how they are received. Praise strengthens the self. Criticism destabilizes it. Silence threatens it. This creates what psychology calls an externalized self-concept. Your worth is mirrored. Your value is negotiated. Your safety depends on reception. But people who are not controlled by judgment develop an internalized self-concept. They experience themselves directly. Their emotions inform identity. Their values guide decisions. Their internal state defines worth. They still notice opinions, but opinions do not enter the nervous system as commands. They enter as information, and information does not trigger fear. Threat does. This is the difference. Fear of judgment is not social awareness. It is social dependence. It is the nervous system outsourcing safety. When safety is outsourced, every interaction becomes a risk assessment. How did I sound? How did I look? What did they think? The mind becomes a courtroom. The body becomes a surveillance system. But when safety is internalized, something fundamental changes. The nervous system no longer scans. It perceives, and perception does not require defense. This is why people who do not fear judgment often appear calm, not because life is easier, but because their identity is not constantly being negotiated. Fear of judgment fades the same way any conditioned response fades, through repeated exposure without consequence. The brain learns through association. If being seen repeatedly leads to emotional harm, fear strengthens. If being seen repeatedly leads to nothing, fear dissolves. This is what the experiment revealed. The participants were not trained to be confident. They were trained to remain, to exist while observed, without correcting, without explaining, without managing perception. At first, the nervous system protested, but without reinforcement, the fear loop lost meaning, and the brain stopped spending energy protecting against nothing. This is how the fear of judgment actually ends. Not through affirmations, not through bravado, but through nervous system recalibration. People who no longer fear judgment usually went through one of three experiences: repeated non-catastrophic exposure, identity development independent of approval, or emotional exhaustion from self-monitoring. In all three cases, the same thing happens. The brain decouples observation from danger, and when observation no longer equals danger, self-consciousness collapses. This creates a noticeable psychological shift. They speak slower, not because they are careful, but because they are not rushed. They move more deliberately, not because they are dominant, but because they are not bracing. They leave conversations clean, no replay, no residue, no internal courtroom, because the nervous system did not open a threat file. This is also why they often appear authentic, not because they try to be, but because performance is unnecessary when safety is internal. Authenticity is not a trait, it is the absence of defense, and defense is born from fear. People who don't care about judgment are not indifferent, they are integrated. Their identity does not fragment under observation. Their emotional system is not outsourced. Their sense of self does not require agreement. This makes them appear confident, but what you are actually seeing is coherence. Their inner experience and outer behavior match. There is no social translation layer, no constant editing, no internal performance, just perception guiding action. This is why their presence often feels grounding. They are not regulating themselves through the room, they are regulating themselves from within. Psychologically, this is one of the strongest predictors of long-term well-being. Internal identity anchoring reduces anxiety, stabilizes mood, improves boundaries, and increases emotional resilience. It does not make life easier, it makes the self quieter, and a quiet self can hear clearly. Fear of judgment does not disappear because you become better. It disappears because your nervous system learns it is safe to exist, without negotiation, without rehearsal, without permission. And when that happens, something important shifts. You stop living as a social object and start living as a psychological subject. If this exploration helped you understand yourself or others more clearly, consider subscribing to Neuroplane for more calm, neuroscience-based insights into human behavior and the hidden mechanics shaping modern life. And I'd genuinely like to hear your experience. Do you notice fear of judgment shaping your choices? Or have you felt moments where it disappeared? Share your thoughts in the comments.